All right, everyone. It is now here in the Eastern time zone. It's 12 p.m., but across the coast in LA, it's currently 9 in the morning. So we're going to go ahead and get started. Hello, Todd. Thank you so much for being here.
Thank
I'm
you.
already, I have AJ and Trevor here with me. Um,
What's
Hey
yeah,
guys.
so
up?
this is our server.
Hey. I want to listen to that music a little bit more. Can we listen to the elevator music a little more?
We'll have to bring it back.
The
Yeah, we,
Daft
we
Punk
love
remake
the little music.
of Discord elevator music. How are you all doing today?
We're good. We're very excited. We have about 470 people in the audience. I'm sure we're going to get some more in.
I see it
Yep, here they
going up.
come.
It's brilliant.
Yeah, everyone's really excited to be here. We had, let's see, we had our friends over at the Daft Punk Instagram post us, and we got about 2,000 people slowly pour in over the
Amazing.
course of just 2 hours.
That's brilliant. It's a good thing I don't get
Yeah,
stage
we're all
fright.
really, oh, us too,
Yeah, I'm kidding.
us too. So we've got some pre-selected questions that we got over the weekend. We reopened the AMA question channel for people who just got here. Welcome everyone. So you guys can put your questions in there while we're talking to Todd, and we'll grab what we can once we get the pre-selected questions. So just to start out with, going down memory lane here, uh, writing Fragments of Time and Fragments of Time, not the first time you worked with the duo. Um, so you've been called the godfather of UK garage, and Daft Punk actually shouted you out as a source of inspiration to them on their track Teachers. So how
Yeah.
did you guys first make contact to collaborate for the Discovery album?
Um, well, they reached out before they even made homework. And I met up with them with my first manager in New York. Tomas and Guimont with I think they were like early 20s because I think it was like 23 at the time. And it was just kind of like get to know each other. Tomas did pretty much all the talking. Guimont was really quiet, and I was so impressed that this 21, 22 year old was so knowledgeable, business, even just business wise in music. And I mean, I was starting to make waves as a music producer, but I'm just some dumb kid from New Jersey, and I'm like hearing him talking about like, yes, we are making a deal with Virgin, but it's not. We're not really quite sure just yet, and it's like the confidence. It wasn't like an arrogance, but just a confidence about like, oh, we're gonna make sure the deal is great. And here I was a kid, like, when I first started putting stuff out, I'm like, I'll sign my life away to Nervous Records because I just want to be on Nervous Records. It's like, so I was like, oh, the French definitely have a lot more confidence than Americans do.
Like just all that passion.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and just like, I guess it's just like I said, just feeling that, we're gonna make sure we do the right deal for us, and it wasn't like needing to get our foot in the door or anything like that. Like they knew what they were doing.
So what kind of vision did they have for Face to Face if they had one?
Well, with Discovery was going to be a live action film broken up into music videos. So each song was going to play a part in the film. And it was primarily going to focus on like androids that were kind of being oppressed, I guess almost like a capitalistic society. Yeah, like, there was going to be like a factory scene where they're working in the factory, and that's like where harder, better, faster, stronger was going to be. And you know there was going to be this antagonist that at some point that they were going to battle against. And the way Tomas described it is like after the battle and the smoke cleared, you were going to see this giant mirror, and it was going to be like all the people just kind of facing that mirror. In other words, they were their own worst enemy. They were the enemy. So the idea of face to face, when I wrote the song, came about based on that premise. And the words face to face, actually it's really saying Christopher Roberts because it's a sample off of an old track. But basically I wrote it so you could the song could be sung to your like looking in a mirror or singing to another person or singing it to God. Like I needed it to fit all those three ideas.
So from the chat, JXHNF09, he asked, how did your music production process change after working with Daft Punk for Discovery?
Well, the production, my production style was there. One of the things that Tomas introduced me to was the Digitech Talker, which is a like an analog vocoder. You hook up your keyboard to it, and then you hook up a microphone, and you can synthesize your vocals. So I bought one of those, which I wish I have now, which I don't, and they're really expensive. But I started to incorporate more vocoding into my work based on using that. I mean, you could do so much stuff digitally now, use plugins for vocoding, but it was a cool little piece right there. And even that still got used in Fragments of Time, the original Digitech Talker. Tomas used that when you hear the solo in Fragments of Time and you hear the vocoding. That's him. In fact, there's video recording of him doing that too, which is really cool.
Oh, that's amazing. That was actually a question that we had written down for later. If you knew who was doing that amazing solo in
Yeah.
Fragments of Time.
Yeah, and it's great. Like I'm hoping like they release that video, but you see him actually singing the part, and like wow, it's like superbly, sang it exactly the way you hear it in the actual song. The other thing is too, just to mention, one of the other things that inspired me about Discovery, that it was this story that they were telling through songs. And I have an album that basically was like my first vocal album called Odyssey, which kind of emulated that idea of like telling a story of one person through the album. And I took the album down when I rebought my back catalog, and then I remastered my album. So at some point over the next 5 years, hopefully, I will release it so you can get an idea of my version of my inspiration from their storytelling, basically.
Wow, we're really looking forward to seeing that. That sounds amazing. You mentioned telling a story with Discovery. It's actually a pretty good segue into a question that's I'm inclined to ask because there's a very special anniversary this week, and it's not the one everyone's thinking of. Daft Punk's Interstella 5555 or Interstella 45, however you prefer to say it,
Yeah.
turns 20 years old this upcoming Thursday, which is a
Wow.
pretty big anniversary. Yeah.
That's
I wanted
crazy.
to ask, the face-to-face segment represents like a really refreshingly hopeful point in the film where, we see humanity come together to send our favorite blue pop stars, back to their home planet. How did you feel about this film and how face-to-face was used?
I think that they held the story, the narrative of the story changed a bit from, I think, the original vision of the live action that they were going for, but I think they kept the essence of it. You know what I mean? I think at the time, and what's a really cool behind the scenes idea is that working with them both on Discovery and on Ram, the it's almost like a clay, like when you're a sculptor. It's like it's the sculpture starts out one way, and the vision can change after a while. You know what I mean? So, and you know there was a one point that I think that it was getting a little bit too much to execute at, like, with this live action, and all of a sudden they decided to turn it into an anime. And it was crazy. I forgot the name of the talented Japanese anime artist, but when Tomas basically told me about it, he's like, "Did you ever see the show Star Blazers?" And I'm like, "Oh my god!" Like, I grew up on this as a kid. Like, this show was a sci-fi show about these battleships that were converted into spaceships, and they had to save planet Earth. And I would watch it every morning before going to grammar school. Like, and they would count down on every episode because they had like 365 days to save the Earth. And I'm like, how did, like, I didn't even, I was like, I was blown away. Like, how did you even think to like get this guy to animate your movie? Like, I don't know. I never had that type of forward thinking. So hearing them talk about things like that, it's just like genius. People always like talk about how great the music is, but everything else that goes into their work is, in the behind the scenes of the business and the marketing is just blows me away.
Yeah, it really is. They really got to, make such a beautiful piece of art, especially with their hero. And
Yeah,
we love to be able to celebrate it here. We're all really big fans of the movie. But
yes, it was brilliant.
catching
It
back
was.
up to speed, yeah.
Yeah,
Um, of course, we have our other important anniversary, which is 10 years of Random Access Memories.
yeah.
There's been a lot going on. We've got the expanded album, we had the Snapchat AR experience, we've had new social engagement that we've never seen before, a new music video for the Julian Casablancas track. How have you been enjoying the rollout?
How about, oh, I mean, to me, it's nostalgic. My favorite thing was seeing when they presented the video to me of the writing of Fragments of Time, and that was emotional because that, working with them the second time changed my life because I literally like packed up a U-Haul after that and moved to LA from New Jersey. So I'm just thankful to, to still be playing a part with their music and in their lives. And, I made two really good friends out of it. And, like I said, they've been there at crucial moments in my life. Like, I don't want to say saved me, but definitely have helped at low points and, and have lifted my career up. And yeah, I think exposed my music to, a bigger world that might not have known because I'm into underground house music and, they've reached pop level.
Yeah, and it definitely would not be the same without you at all.
Oh, thank you.
Of course.
Go
How
on,
did
keep
they reach out
talking.
to
Yeah.
you about it? Sorry. How did they reach out to you about their plans for the anniversary edition of the album and their plan to include that little segment of the writing of Fragments of Time?
Well, it was about last year in summertime. Tomas was out with his younger son, and they still have office space in LA. So I went out to visit them, and I usually see Tomas and Guimon usually probably like once a year in summertime. They usually come out in August. COVID kind of put a damper on that for a while, but it was really good to catch up last year. And they told me, and I remember, like I said, I mean, the great thing about the writing of Fragments in Time is the whole session was recorded. I mean, it was a 5-hour writing session of us like writing the song to most of the song together. Um, because there was a couple elements that like when Tomas came up with the idea of Fragments of Time was before that writing session, but the rest of the song was written in that 5 hours, and they condensed most of that into this 8-minute clip. And, I think the way they did it and having the music underneath it really just added to the emotion. It's almost like a soundtrack to the writing itself. And then the idea that they wanted to make Fragments of Time, the writing of Fragments of Time, like the centerpiece, showing the humanity behind the androids, which is really, just kind of like revealing that there's two humans behind the android. So I feel very proud to again, hear something that we did 10 years ago, and it's getting rekindled again. So it's I mean, to me, like I said, it's an honor to work with them.
So listening to the track, the writing of your energy and passion in the studio with Toma is like contagious, and it sounds like you two are having a really, really joyful process making that song. What was it like revisiting that memory and re-listening to that recording of you guys working in the studio to create that song?
Well, like I said, it was really emotional. I got to with the Because team, we played it over Zoom. Cedric Hervet was in the chat, and I was on video, and they could see my facial expression, and like even just listening back, they could see like I genuinely just was moved by the experience. I mean, look, the whole thing about the writing was I call it, I joke around that like I have happy Tourette's because like, when I'm excited about something, I'll just like, blurt it out like, this is so amazing, or like, wow, this is great. I've never had this. And, my first experience in LA hanging out with them, it was kind of like a movie. Like, I grew up in the 80s, and you'd always see these like party movies, and like I was just like, these don't exist. Like, where does this exist? And like it kind of exists in LA. So I got exposed to like going to these parties, working in this huge studio, this beautiful weather, driving from Tomas' home in the Hollywood Hills. It's like it was something out of a dream. So, Tomas, hearing all these things coming out of my mouth, said, "We're going to write that song, about your experience here, which made the writing of the song really easy because there was just so many things. And I said after just being there for a week, I had talked about how I already regretted the fact that I had to go home. I was already starting to like get depressed about going back to New Jersey. Here it is like February, it's warm, sunny weather, and I have to go back to like this freezing state and leave this experience behind. So it really kind of lent itself to the writing of the song, and everything you hear in that audio of us writing was genuine. Writing the song itself, the singing of it, even singing the song, when I was singing it, it made me choked up because I was feeling everything that we wrote. It's not like just we made up some story. It was writing from my personal experience.
So, kind of diving more deeply into the actual contents of the writing of Fragments of Time. Manuel, one of our mods here in the server, wants to know how did the lyrics for Fragments of Time change from the very first iteration to what was eventually released on RAM?
Well, honestly, like I said, 99% of it was written in that 5-hour writing session that was condensed down to the 8 minutes. So it really kind of was more of just building up the ideas first. Like I said, like when we went to a party and we pulled up to the house, I'm like, I feel like I've been here before. And Tomas is like, remember that'll be part of the song. So the only thing that changed from that, it's like, instead of saying familiar places I've never seen, it was changed to familiar faces. I think it just made it a little more personal. But like I said, like we drove down from Tomas' house in the hills down to the office in his car with the roof, it was a convertible, so the top was down, sunny out. So the idea of like driving the road down the paradise, was part of that. That's what it was. The coolest thing that I remember too is like was really just coming up with what the name of the song was going to be. And we were in Tomas' guest room, and there's a piano there, and we were kind of at the piano, just he was playing, and we were just kind of trying to think of lyrics, and all of a sudden, and at some point, he just like the light bulb went off. He turns to me and snaps his finger and goes, "Fragments of Time." That's the name of the song. So it kind of all started there.
So 10 years after it was released, does the line "familiar faces I've never seen" still give you the same feeling it gave you when it was first written?
Oh yeah. I mean, LA is a very magical place. There's still this sense of wonder. Like for me, I kind of still fanboy out when you see actors and actresses and stuff. And that was kind of like the wonder of it. Like, going, meeting people that, let's put an example. We went to a friend's, one of Daft's friends' birthday party. Was at the Roosevelt Hotel. And, there's a DJ there, and I'm like, that DJ could pass as Elijah Wood's double. And someone turns to me and goes, "That is Elijah Wood. He has a record label too, and he likes to DJ." I'm like, "Oh my God." It's like Lord of the Rings. That's, it's like, I don't meet actors on a regular basis, so it was like the idea of like seeing an actor that was on the screen in front of me was just like, it's just crazy.
Yeah, that's amazing.
It's just funny.
Yeah. All right. So I have a question here. This is kind of for me personally, but when I was re-listening to the song, "Fragments of Time," I was listening to it, and there's a lyric that goes, "Keep building these random memories." Is this potentially where the name of the album came from, or was that already figured out, seeing that Thomas and Guy had a pretty big plan for this LP already, probably before you even came to the studio to make the song?
Yeah, I Random Access Memories, the name of the album was already there. I actually came up with that line, which I'm very proud to say.
Nice.
Yeah, I was like, and Tomas was happy with that too. So yeah, I did something witty.
Love it. All right. And we have another question here. This is from one of our users, Isaac Newton. He says, "How many takes did it take to record Fragments of Time? Was there ever a point where you were so close to finishing the song but messed up at the end?"
No, I mean, well, what they do, you don't do the whole song in one take, so you do passes. So like, you do the verses, might sing the verse over and over again, just so you get enough takes to choose from, and then you can edit it down. and it's the same thing with Face to Face. Just a little bit of trivia here. When I presented Face to Face to Tomas and Guiman, they liked my voice. So Tomas gave me some direction on how to sing the song, because I didn't really have a definitive singing style, and there's a reason I'm going back to the story, and I'll fast forward back to Fragments. But basically, when I sang Face to Face the first time, I was like singing it kind of nasally, and Tomas is like, "Can you sing it more in the style of like the rock group Foreigner, a little more raspy?" So I sang Face to Face twice, just twice. And that's the final cut that you hear on the song. There was no auto tune. They just layered it and side chained it, and that was it. So that kind of almost established my main voice. Like people recognize that kind of more of a raspier sound. So I just kind of stuck with that idea for Fragments of Time. Because again, and if you listen to my other work, like I'll do impersonations, I might sing in different styles to fit the song and stuff, but I figured since Face to Face was so known for that sound, let me stick with that. So and again, as we were doing the takes and stuff, the only thing that I really had trouble with was doing some improv. Like some people could sit there and sing trills and just like come up with like amazingly improv lines. It just wasn't my thing. So that's why you don't really hear too many improvs on there. I'm glad we got a vocoded solo instead from Tomas.
So on the writing of Fragments of Time, Tomas mentioned some lines from another song on the album, Touch. While you were working on Fragments of Time, how aware were you of the rest of the project and everything else that was going on to produce the album?
Oh, sorry, go on. Sorry.
And did you contribute to the album outside of Fragments of Time?
No, Fragments of Time was the only one that I worked on. But what Tomas had described to me what the album was going to be like. He kept talking about these West Coast vibes and the older way of recording and making music, and how it's not done anymore that way. And I just I still didn't get a full picture of what he meant by all of it. But of course I was I was like, sure, I'm on board. So the first day I was there, he played like pretty much all the tracks in their rough form, like just the musical, all the music that's recorded. And I just remember like it just felt like the air got sucked out of the room, and I'm just thinking to myself, this album is going to be a masterpiece. I mean, it's just, I was blown away. And then he's like, okay, and this is the song this is the music we want you to write to. And it plays it, and it was like, it made me a little panicky, because it was the country sounding song mixed with gospel-y soul, and I'm like, inside I'm thinking, I've never written anything ever over something like this before. And so I was a little concerned, like, oh, help it come, like, you want to pull it off, the pressure. Fortunately it was really easy to write because of Tomas' idea of writing about my times in LA, so but it was just but the album itself, like I said, I heard it in different stages, from they would have musicians coming in to play bass lines, like Nathan East would come in. I heard him playing bass lines over a couple of tracks. I forgot, there was one artist that came in and did the some of the, what's it called, the steel, I can't think of the name. What is the thing that the country, that twangy steel? Does anyone know the name of the instrument? I feel so ignorant right now.
The
Steel something.
not
Whatever.
sure.
All right, good. At least I don't feel that bad. You don't know what it is either.
Yeah. So then, kind of following up on that, we had a sort of similar question to that, about Touch. Like you were mentioning Touch lyrics during the writing of. And the question, this one was specifically about, was there any collaborators from RAM you interacted with or wanted to? I mean, I know you were already talking about some people you interacted with, but was there anybody who you didn't get to interact with that you really want to interact with?
I mean, I got to meet Paul Williams. This is the cool thing. First of all, I got to see, like, I got to be there when Pharrell Williams heard the final product for for Lose Yourself to Dance and Get Lucky. I was there when Paul Williams got to hear Touch for the fun, and just I mean that's just a memory that you just need to be there, because he was so blown away by what he heard. I mean everyone is blown. To me, Touch is a masterpiece track. I wish, I've said this before in an interview, I wish that they toured this album just to see what they would have done visually for Touch. I just think that it would have what they could have come up with for such a beautiful song. A cool little anecdote with Pharrell. The day that they were recording the videos for Lose Yourself to Dance and Get Lucky, I asked if he could make a little video message for my nephew at the time, because my nephew was going through something rough and he needed to go for a job interview and stuff. And he recorded the most beautiful 1-minute message of encouragement that I still keep on my computer desktop. And I sent it to my nephew, and he's like that, he got choked up watching it. And then when they were ready to promote Ram at Coachella, we were at the Bing Crosby estate. Everyone was invited there to hang and stay overnight. And Pharrell showed up, and the first thing out of his mouth when he saw me was, "How's your nephew doing?" What a sweet soul he is. Great guy.
That's amazing. And I think that really just highlighted I think Paul Williams' comments at the Grammys when they did the acceptance speech. He said Pharrell's just been so good. The guys, that you just confirmed that so well, man. Thank you for that.
Yeah. Oh, also, and I got to know Niall. I mean, I opened for Niall. It's like I met Nile Rodgers, and this is the man that I grew up listening to with Chic and stuff, and he knows me. It's not just oh, who's that again? It's he knows who I am. I know who he is. It's surreal, it's when your legendary heroes that have inspired your work become your friends in the industry.
That's awesome. I love that. So this question comes from Afin, and they say, what was the general feeling around the studio during the development of Ram? Was there any indication of this is going to be our final album?
I don't think that there was per se indication it was the final album. I know that personally there was kind of a rough start. Tomas had mentioned, because at the time he didn't after the album or during the album he had built a studio for himself in Paris, but up to that point I think there was kind of this transition period that he didn't really have a studio, personal studio, which kind of made it difficult to vibe off of. And I think the initial work that they were doing was putting together some samples, and it just wasn't clicking for them. And I think that they had the epiphany of going back in time and taking those samples and then bringing them new life through actually getting musicians to play them. And that's kind of how the album took flight per se. But I didn't get the sense that it was going to be the last album. I think afterwards, the reason why I wasn't shocked by the breakup is I know from speaking to Tomas, they kind of seemed like they were on two separate paths. I mean, Guimon has a love for hip hop and doing stuff in that world, and Tomas kind of, I think, had his sights set on other things. He loves cinematography and directing, and it just seemed like when you work on an album like that, it's intense. It's I said this before. I think you can compare it to being on a submarine with a bunch of people, and you're out at sea for months. You get to know people, you can get close to people, you can enhance the relationship, but it also can, you need your space after you come back to dock, and I think that it just gets difficult sometimes to continue that magic. And but I also think that just because there's a breakup doesn't mean that at some point there's not another epiphany and says, hey, let's get back in the studio together. I wouldn't count that out.
Right. And either way, what an album to go off to leave us with,
Yeah,
like quite a swan song.
for
Speaking
sure.
of between this album and Discovery, how do you feel the process of production with Guy Mantama like changed between you three, between Face to Face in 2001 and Fragments of Time over a decade later?
I mean, I obviously, if you listen to the albums, there is definitely an evolution to the way they work. To like again, I think if you even go before you listen to Homework, and it was a collection of amazing house tracks. Then Discovery kind of I think sounded more like the storytelling. It's like an artist driven album. I mean, you have your slower songs, mid tempo songs, or dance tracks. Like I think it sounded even more well rounded. And then with Human After All, it almost like I think like you hear it felt like it was scaled back. It kind of stuck within a certain, they use certain elements throughout all the tracks. It was a more narrow vision for what they were doing. And then here they tore the album, and which kind of brings all three albums together and kind of congeals it. Then you got the Tron Legacy soundtrack, which combines their style with contemporary orchestra. And then now you put all that together, and it's almost like you add all those things up and you get Ram, because it has a bit of all of that. There's orchestral elements in some of the tracks and the interludes. Some of the tracks are harder and has that edge that Human After All has. You know, Get Lucky, has that vibe almost like it was a sample that was, it wasn't a sample, but obviously it kind of has that sampley feel that you got from Discovery. Um, so, to me, it's just like if you follow the journey, it's a really beautiful artist's journey.
So, kind of going off of that, how do you feel that your time working on Fragments of Time and working on RAM affected your own production style and production methods? And how was it different from what you learned from Discovery and Fragments and Face to Face?
I mean, I being a dance music producer, like my thing is like I've always been explorative of sampling from records and whatnot, but my world was small in comparison to what they accomplished with RAM. And I wouldn't like again, just the way I was blown away by them, you know, reaching out to their favorite Japanese anime creator, the idea that they're like, hey, I'm going to reach out to, the guitarist that worked with Eric Clapton. I'm going to reach out to the engineer that worked on Prince's Controversy. Like, I would have never thought of that in a million years. So it's like, it broadened my horizons. Like, I never knew how live music, like how drums were recorded, and, seeing this, and it sounds ignorant considering I've had decent success in my own career, but being more electronic based, I never saw, I never did that myself. And then the idea is what I've constantly learned is how much goes into the music beyond the music, with Discovery, again, the storytelling, at the time that's at the point where they decided to invest and make masks to, not only add this mystical element to the androids, but also to give them anonymity. With RAM, they decided to, because they were doing most of the recording process through analog, using mixing boards and classically, the classic trained engineers, they decided to roll out the promotion very analog. They put billboards up all over LA. I remember going through books of just studying what billboards worked in the 70s and whatnot, and then just rolling out the teasers on, like, during Saturday Night Live commercials. They would I mean, no one really promoted albums through TV anymore, really. And then even just recording the videos for Lose Yourself to Dance and Get Lucky, they did that with 65 millimeter film as opposed to using digital. There was nothing digitally done. Like, they built this huge cylinder to put to put the band inside for Get Lucky, and the thing and the cylinder rotated with it had holes in it with silver streamers behind it that were lit up so it sparkled, so you see like the stars moving around them. And I mean, they literally it was so expensive to build this large set for a trailer for an album that didn't even get a full video. Like Get Lucky never really got a full uh video made. They just did it for these commercials. And then even at the last shot in Get Lucky, you see them playing in front of a sunset, and that was a huge lit up picture. And then they had like a camera with flames being shot in front of it, so it created the wavy effect that you get from heat from the sun. I mean, when they commit to an idea, they commit to an idea. So most people sit there and fanboy out over the music. I fanboy out of how they built their empire and what goes into it's the music is just one element of a greater picture.
Yeah, they had just this amazing vision and they went for it. And it was just such a big, grand vision. And it was so iconic. And it went really great because we can all remember 2013, the original billboards. And now we get to see new ones, new billboards popping up for Ram 10, which is just amazing to see. Really nostalgic for people who lived through the first rollout, and just a great opportunity for those who didn't, for those who were too young. Speaking of being iconic, one of our users, Miros, asks, despite your extensive history as a garage house producer and renowned DJ, your singing voice is one of your most recognizable traits because its unique timbre and soulful quality. Was there any particular musician or a certain sound or delivery that you wanted to emulate while singing the vocal takes for Fragments of Time and Face to Face?
Like I said, I took Tomas' direction for Face to Face. He wanted something a little more raspy because it was like I guess just like, I don't want to say a diamond in the rough because I'm not patting myself on the back for being some epic singer, but like I said, it was just this unrefined voice. I never really sang professionally. I always fantasized about becoming like a pop star, and I would sing while I was in high school, but I never. It's funny because I had a few friends tease me at the end of high school, I was so insecure as a kid that I actually put singing on the back burner and just focused on my production. And even with Face to Face doing well, the internet wasn't as big when, don't get me wrong, it was getting bigger, but it wasn't as big as it is now. So I wasn't really following how many people really loved Face to Face. And it wasn't until literally I moved out here to LA at like 40 years old, and people coming up to me, it's like, I never knew you were the voice on Face to Face. I love that song. I love your voice. And like, all this time I could have been singing more and doing more. And it's like, it's crazy because, this is why you should always believe in yourself and don't let anyone's criticism ever hold you back from pursuing what you want to do. And with Fragments of Time, like I said, I think, over the years, I kind of my voice matured. I kind of felt more confident in my singing, and I kind of have a better grasp of the way I should sound on a track. So they didn't really give me too much direction on Fragments of Time, but Tomas paid me a really great compliment. He's like, you have really good pitch. He's like, with every take, you sang it exactly the same. Like, he was impressed with that, and he encouraged me to focus on my singing more, which I am.
So, recently, the first episode of Memory Tapes with Julian Casablancas was released, and in it, there's some videos that were taken during the recording process of Random Access Memories. You mentioned earlier that they recorded some, and specifically, you mentioned the Tomas singing the vocoder part for Fragments of Time. Yes. Is there anything else from stuff that was recorded for Random Access Memories that you would like to see them make public and available?
Yeah, well, there was like like Nathan East playing bass on a couple tracks. There was the funny thing is there's a Kanye. There's one track that never made it to the album. It's just drums, that Kanye used for one of his tracks on his album, and like you hear Nathan East playing some bass, which actually is running through a vocoder itself, or some kind of setting that makes it sound like a voice instead of just a bass sound. And it's like anyone that's a Kanye fan would recognize those drums.
Are you talking about Black Skinhead by chance?
Yes. Yeah. Okay. Thank you, because I forgot the name. I'm terrible with names, so thank you for bringing that up. Yeah, it was like crazy. You know, when I heard that for the first time, it's like no one knows that this originally was supposed to be for Ram. You know.
Okay, sweet. So this question comes from Jay Loped, and they ask, are there any funny things that happened during Ram's production?
Any funny things that happened? I mean, nothing like crazy. I mean, the experiences were fun, but like, I can't say there was anything like really like laughable moments per se. I've told this joke, not joke, but I've told this anecdote before. When I was there for the second time, when for the final mastering of Ram, I was with Tomas and Guimon, and I don't know how it came up in conversation, but during their making, they made Tron Legacy, the film score. I had emailed them afterwards, and I had lost touch for a while because I went through a dark period in my life, and I reached out to them to tell them how great the soundtrack was, and I had just by chance had both their emails, and that started a dialogue.
Okay.
Hey, can you hear
There
me?
we go. Yeah,
There
we
we
got
go.
you. You're
I don't
back.
know. It just said I was being used at some other location. Someone hacking my account.
Oh, I think a couple other people had that login. Oh, it can only be in one place at once, but yeah. Sorry.
Where did I get cut off? Do you remember?
I have no clue. We were trying to
Okay,
fix
I'm
that.
sorry. Maybe we just
We
go on.
we could just move on. Yeah, we can just move
Yeah,
on to the
move
next
on.
question.
So, speaking more broadly about your production, with the rise of AI and the rise of this like sample snitching and all that, how do you think that will affect your legacy and Daft Punk's legacy as these samples continue to get found and discovered?
And this
Well-
question comes from Rift. So thank
Oh,
you,
yeah.
Rift.
My bad.
Well, I love when I was younger, I did it too. It's like I love finding samples that my favorite artists have used. The thing is I think for artists in general, I mean, like, let's put it this way. There are people that use samples and, a few samples in their tracks. For me, personally, it makes it difficult because I use hundreds of samples. Like, some tracks could have like 70 samples in it, and the idea of trying to clear that many samples it's ridiculous. Like, there's no way it's something that can be done. On a positive note, you have services like Splice where people are selling sample banks that they made, and I recently discovered a slew of samples under the phrase resample, where basically you have people that are trying to make basically impersonate clips that you hear from old funk records. I think that the TikTok generation has brought this to the forefront. So it's like it actually sounds like, oh, this is someone sampled an old soul record, and it really isn't. It's just someone just played a bass, a guitar, a piano, and put a vocal on it, so it sounds like a clip from a soul record, and it sounds really good. So I've been able to kind of emulate my old work by sampling from these type of banks off of Splice. However, part of the magic of sampling is taking concepts and ideas from old work that no one's ever heard of before and bringing it into something new. It could be a chord progression that I would never have the talent to think of myself, or a melody that could be lost in time. Uh, Ironically, it's crazy that so many people now, especially in dance music, are sampling things that were already successful and putting them in their tracks, which is you would think that that would happen less and less, but I think you have a lot of artists that are more willing to have their music be used as samples to make money off of. But
Was there anything else on that question you want to add on to, or we can move on to the next one?
fun, we can move on. I ramble, so I apologize for my long-winded answers.
All
Don't
good, all
apologize
good.
at all. We love to hear it.
Okay, so this question comes from Krisha, and she says, "I'll admit while I'm a fan of Daft Punk and love the 2 songs you did together, I'm not really familiar with your work. Which songs of yours would you recommend?"
Well, what I would do is go on. Well, it depends what you're looking for. If you're looking for more vocal stuff, I've worked with a group named Poolside. You know, if you go on Spotify, like the top things that are played, I did something with Groove Armada that I sang on and wrote the song. But if you, I mean, I've released a slew of my back catalog on Defected Records, which focuses more on the cut up sample style that you hear in Face to Face. It's funny because I'm very well known for my cut and paste style and making a musical collage of samples, pasting them together. And a lot of people love to dig for the samples that are in Face to Face. Funny enough, Tomas did a lot of the playing of those samples. So he literally, if he wanted to imitate a Todd Edwards track, he knows how to do it. But the samples that are in that track, 90% of those samples came from my sample banks. And what is sampled has like the palette of samples, it has more to do with my signature than just even how they're arranged. And anything from that's on Defected Records right now will give you an education of my history of music. So, and again, I'm like thankful because you see how artists can be known regionally, globally. Working with Daft Punk has helped to bring in a bigger audience to a smaller niche sound of music that I get to share with the world. So I'm very thankful for that.
Yeah, I love that. I also want to give a quick shout out to the song "The Chant." I absolutely love that one. It's such a great
Thank
one.
you. Yeah, thank you. You know, it is when I get put on the spot, I'm like, what should I listen to? I'm not sure. The Chant. The Chant is a great example of, cutting up samples, got a vocal on that. Thank you. Yeah, that's a good one.
So, going a bit back to Ram for a second, aside from Daft Punk themselves, what other artist albums or songs did you use to guide you through writing and producing Fragments of Time?
Well, you know what? I grew up in the 70s and the 80s. So I love writing in the classic style. Like, if you notice a lot of modern music, like a lot of songs these days, I'm going to sound like an old producer. Back in my day, songs were written better. But the music today, a lot of the songs are written almost like like commercials. Like there's a gimmick there. But a good portion of it is just to make something catchy, but there's not a lot of storytelling behind it. And I grew up in the 70s where there was like a lot of rhyming schemes, like A B type of rhymes. I love Stevie Wonder. Sounds of the my older cousin had given me the cassette of Sounds of the Key of Life, and I rinsed that cassette. I was always inspired by groups like ABBA, which basically had this musical journey with their songs. Like there was so many chord progressions and changes within that. I loved Michael Jackson, Janet Jackson, Duran Duran. I'm just trying to think of like there were so many wonderful artists that I grew up with in the 80s that and that's the thing about pop music, was very diverse in the 80s because you had a lot of dance, you had some rock thrown in there, some soul. Pop music, I think, definitely has gotten to the point where it's a little more manufactured and less human. So yeah.
Mm-hmm. All right, so we have I think 3 more questions left. We're gonna try to get these pretty quick since we're running low on time. This one comes from one of our admins, R, and they say, "Do you have any studio rituals to help you get in the zone?"
I sacrifice a goat to Satan every. No, just kidding. Rituals. Well, basically, I'll stop at Dunkin' Donuts, get myself a coffee. Usually, I dress in the same. Like I have to wear really comfortable clothes. Like I'm very like sensitive. Like I'll wear like sweatshorts and a t-shirt. Like that's my studio gear always. And then I'll procrastinate for a good hour or so because, I could never just jump right into making music. You know, so yeah, that's pretty much that. I start my day late. I am the opposite of being an efficient machine. It's amazing that I've had a successful career for the lack of efficiency I have as an artist. So I used to work I used to work opposite hours, like, all night and then sleep all day. As I've gotten older, I've gotten a little more healthy with that, and I'll get in the studio, and put my time in from like 12 to 6 or 12 to 8.
Yeah. Sweet. All right. And then this next question comes from late nighter fighter. And they say if you had to choose between Face to Face or Fragments of Time as your favorite collaboration with the robots, which one would it be?
Ooh, that's rough. That's really
I
putting me on
know,
the spot.
I'm sorry.
No,
We had
It's
to
like
ask
picking
this
between your
one.
two kids.
Yeah, exactly. Um, you can't, don't make me answer that like that. I mean, they both opened up my worlds in different ways. They really did, I mean, if I defaulted to Fragments of Time, it's only because, on a personal level, moving to LA changed my life. It opened up my world and gave me an individuality that I didn't have when I lived in New Jersey. So, that happened there. But I mean, face to face, and like, I got to meet like, the Daft Punk family. I mean, Pedro Winters, who's, the guy that owns and Ed Banger Records and manages Justice. So it's like, I got to meet him when he was their manager, DJ Falcon, Gilda, who went on to make Kitsune Records in the fashion line. Like both times just opened my world, I was just some like naive kid from Jersey, so that's the best I can give you.
Well, we love to hear all these different insights. So we have time for just one more question before we close it out. So we got this question from user Anatol from today. They said,
Mhm.
Todd, you really inspired me. I'm 19 years old and I want to make music for the rest of my life. I've been making music forever, but was never professionally educated. What kind, if at all, musical education did you receive? And what would you recommend for young people like me starting out and spending time learning?
Well, I did not study music professionally. I actually went to school for marketing. I did take a year and a half of piano. One of the most important things I would recommend to you, and I think it's very easy because there's so much technology out there that you don't learn how, like an instrument or something. I think learning music theory, like for me, piano and understanding how chords work, it's like learning the alphabet because it's easier to write poetry when you understand how to make words. So, picking up a book on chords, getting yourself familiar with piano, is a good place to start. You can learn a lot from listening to music. I was taught from like a cousin, when you listen to a song, you listen to you try to break it down in your head, like listen to the bass line that's going on, like the guitar, listen to the harmonies, like try to listen to it in all the elements individually in your head, because that will slowly start to help you to understand how music is made. So then you'll be able to listen to it, all the elements separately, and then listen to them as a whole in your mind, and that will become natural to you. The other thing is you have to not quit on yourself. If I had a dollar for every time I wanted to give up, I would be rich just off of that. And every time I wanted to quit, a new door would open. And I would say that it always felt like it was either God, or call it the universe, whatever you'd like, was kept telling me, would you stop doubting yourself and just keep going forward? Though that's really important. And then also, my last statement is music, any art form imitation is the starting place, because like you listen to what inspires you and then you want to make something in that style. But as you grow, you try to put yourself into it, something that's uniquely you. That's how I was able to to develop this longevity. That's what got the attention of Daft Punk when they wanted to work with me. My style was based on something I wanted to be unique. I didn't know it was going to have the impact it had, but I wanted a signature sound. So when you put on a Todd Edwards record, you knew it was me. And I mean, that's basically how it worked for me. So hopefully that advice can help.
Wow, it's really inspiring to hear your advice. And obviously, it's gotten you this far. So we know it's very
I
important
did
to take to
something
heart.
right.
We hope everyone can, really internalize it.
Cool. I hope so. And always, I'm kind of flaky sometimes on socials, but I'm Todd Edwards 3000 across, all platforms. So if you ever have a question, if I can answer it, I'd be happy to try to do that. It's hard to get to them all, but I would love to always help out.
Yes, and you were just live on TikTok yesterday. So if anyone here
You
has
saw that, yeah.
questions that we didn't
That
get
was
to
my
get
first
to,
live- my first live on TikTok.
oh, it was your first one? Oh, it went great.
Yeah, I'm addicted to TikTok now. I used to be like, TikTok, it's great. Now I'm like, I'm on it every day.
Sucks you in.
It does.
It's
It
so
does.
addictive.
It does.
Mhm. But yeah, if everyone wants to keep an eye out for Todd Edwards' future TikTok lives, where you can ask him questions there. So sorry we couldn't get to everyone's questions. We had so many, but they're all
I'm
great.
sorry.
And
That's because I ramble. That's because I talk too much. That's my problem.
no, we love to hear it. We got through all of our pre-selected questions and like two or
That's
three of the pulled ones. So
Mhm.
we had some great
I'll tell you,
answers. We loved talking to you.
if you don't mind me saying so, and I'm not just trying to plug it, but if anyone did have questions from today and you want to reach out on TikTok, I'll be happy to do my best to either write a comment back, or maybe I'll do a live on there just to answer more questions. So
Yeah, I'm sure a lot of people will be appreciative of that. So thank you, Todd, for that.
pleasure,
Yes,
absolute
thank you
pleasure. I
so
thank you all.
much.
It was really I love chatting about the Daft days because they were so inspiring to me, and I'm thankful to call them friends, and to have the opportunity to work twice. Not many people can boast that either.
Totally.
Yeah.
Oh,
Thank you so much for your time, and thank you so
Yes,
much for this
Thank you
opportunity.
so much. We're
thank
so
you so
grateful. We're
much.
all big fans. I'm sure we got a lot of thank yous pouring into the different chats.
Well, you all have a lovely day.
Of course, you too.
You
Thank you
too.
so much again.
Everyone
Yes,
enjoy
thank
the
you.
10th anniversary of RAM. Enjoy the nostalgia.
We are. We got that playing 24/7.
Amazing. All right. Well, have a good day, guys.
Have a good day,
Thank
Todd.
you. You too.
Bye.
Take care. Bye-bye.
All right. Thank you guys so much for tuning in and listening. That was a really great conversation we got to have.
Right. Thank you all so much. And thank you to our friends over at DB Social and Todd's manager for getting us all in touch. And we hope we do more like this.
Yeah, hopefully this won't be the last time.
All right. Be sure to hang around the server and stuff. Be sure to stay tuned for like new announcements and stuff. I'm sure there's more stuff coming with the rollout of RAM 10 and such. So be sure to stay tuned.
All right. Thank you all.
Bye.